that relieves my stress even before the stress started. I was on the life cycle, and I was reading Bill Parcells, the former coach, Hall of Fame coach now. He used to be coach the Giants, obviously, coached them to Super Bowls. And I'm reading, and I'm just trying to find out what clue in here that's going to help me do something different and succeed. And then I saw a title of one of his chapters that said, "If you believe in what you're doing, stay with it." And at that point, I realized you are who you are. You try to be something other than you are. Over a course of a season, you're going to be figured out. It's going to be phony. So I decided I'm just going to be myself, which is basically be honest, listen to people when they talk, try to understand what makes players tick, and then use my baseball ability to figure out how to put the puzzle together. However, when you work for George Steinbrenner, let me explain. The patience level is about right there somewhere, okay? See that? That's not very far apart. So I knew that I had to make an impression in a hurry. Well, the one thing I've never been afraid of in my managing careers is the fact that I never worried about getting fired. I never tried to do something somebody else wanted me to do. I always felt if I was going to do my job, I had to do it the way I felt it should be done, and if somebody else wasn't happy with it, so be it. So I figured this New York Yankee opportunity was marvelous for me, because it gave me an opportunity to work for an owner who wanted to win, who was willing to spend the money, and now I figured, well, I'm going to find out if I can do this or not. And I remember my first meeting with my club in spring training of '96, and I said, guys, I have everyone on my coaching staff, and I had 5 coaches right there. I said, every single one of them have been to a World Series. I have not, other than buying a ticket. And I said, but you know what? I don't want to win 1 World Series. I want to win 3 in a row. And the reason I said that is, to me, when I go someplace, I'm going to do a job, and I just feel in order to do a job, you've got to dig in. You got to dig in. And the one thing I learned during my career, both as a player and as a manager, is you can't do it alone. You can't do it alone. And teamwork, to me, is first of all deciding on a destination, which is the goal, and then figuring out, who's going to get on board. And my job again is to those people who do get on board is to let them know what the plan is. Now, does that mean there aren't going to be setbacks? There are going to be setbacks, no question about it. But to me, the championship people are the ones that are able to shake off the setbacks and move on, learn from the mistakes, learn from different things that go on, as opposed to dwell on, why didn't we do this, I should have done that. And, players win games. Players win games. And the thing I tried, and I was very fortunate. I inherited a ball club that had young players, and didn't find out till shortly into the season that you had guys like Mariano Rivera, Derek Jeter, Andy Pettit, David Cohn, all these people who were interested in winning. Winning. And my definition of winning is somebody getting the most out of their ability. And you cannot do this stuff alone, trust me. Because there are mornings, we're different than any other sport. Our sport is 162 games, so it's you have to eliminate the highs and the lows. You got to try to find a level that you can compete at and try to hold it there. And during my career, I've noticed other sports. You have teams winning Super Bowls, championships in other sports, even baseball, and they spend a lot of time celebrating, and by the time the following season rolls around, you can't find them anymore, because they're admiring what they've done. you know, my ball club was basically, they never admired what they did. We won a World Series in '96, but they never admired it because they wanted to do it again. And I think once you stop to admire what you've done, you've stopped doing it. So I just tried to, as Dennis was pointing out, I tried to listen to people. Tried to, you know, sometimes you overreact a little bit. Somebody comes in and not happy with what you're doing with them or what role you have for them. And I never really reacted to their reaction. I just tried to figure out what made them say it and try to appeal to that and try to figure out how to get through to them. Because my job was about communication and trying to put people in a position to succeed. And I always had, I think I read it in one of these motivational, because trust you read a lot of motivational books. And there was one that the New England Patriots used, which tells me that players win games, but teams win championships. And nothing fit better than that little phrase. Because when you talked about our teams, I'm talking about our Yankees, you know, we won in '96, we won in '98, '99, 2000, World Series in 4 out of our first 5 years. And it wasn't about me, it was about we. You know, in 162 games, you don't feel necessarily at the top of your game every single day. So you need somebody else to rely on, somebody to help you along, somebody to ask about something. It's okay to be a little nervous or a little uncomfortable doing things because there's other people around you that are there to help you. And you know, I've never been one, and it's a little tougher now because if you look at the media, the media right now, we glorify individual achievement a lot. And all of a sudden somebody gets caught up in saying, hey, how about me? And I think once you get caught in that, you know, it takes a little digging to get yourself out of it. And you know, I don't think I've done anything magical. I mean, I got a lot of credit. Upset George because he's supposed to get the credit. Trust me, that upset George. You know, he thought I was secretly telling media things to write about me, you know, and that certainly wasn't the case. But you have to believe in people. And, you know, sometimes it doesn't bear fruit right away. But I always felt that if that person, and I've told players many times, guys, when the start of the season, it's not your ability that's going to win. It's not the ability that's going to get you through. It's going to be your character. It's going to be your character. In other words, if something didn't go right, there's nothing wrong with saying I screwed up. Nothing wrong with it. You know, when you tell the truth, you never have to remember what you said. So I always felt. But George was a little impatient. In fact, we had one meeting. I had in 1999, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer. So I had the surgery and I put Don Zimmer in charge, one of my bench coach. And he, you know, he's a little more volatile than I am. People used to say, boy, you look very calm. I said, yeah, we'll try sitting next to this guy for a while. Everybody's going to think you're calm. Well, George wasn't happy with one particular game, and how I really recovered from, you know, and recovered quickly from my prostate cancer was the fact that I was sitting watching games with George on a regular basis, and that was not easy. That was not good for my health. I knew that. So one day we played a horrible game at the stadium, and I happened to be sitting up in George's box, and as would happen many, many times, George would say, bring everybody up into my office. So he'd go up in his office, all the uniform people, not the players, just the staff. So George's desk would be this big round table, and then he had couches in his office. And I would always place myself next to George because I always felt that I could diffuse things on occasions. So the guys were sitting around the table. Zimmer, I think, was either next to me or one over from me. And George starts the meeting. He says, anybody in here thinks that they're doing the best they can, you can leave now. Well, Zimmer got up and left. And George was beside himself. In fact, Mel Stottlemyre started getting up and walking out the door, and I stopped him. I said, George, I think you meant to say, if anybody in here doesn't think they can do a better job. I said, but it just came out the way it came out. I said, I can understand why Zim left. He's doing the best he can. You know, and the club's not winning, it doesn't mean you're not trying. Well, when Zim went downstairs, his wife Sook was waiting for him, and she thought for sure he was fired because the meeting had just started like 5 minutes ago. But, and George, you know, the one thing about it, when I before I took over the Yankees, I think everybody was aware about George Steinbrenner. You know, all the stories about the Bronx Zoo, Huff and Puff. But my job as a manager, I felt, was to insulate the office, the clubhouse, from George Steinbrenner. Now, am I saying that, you know, George didn't count? No, he owned the team. He owned the team, and he was present. But these players needed to know that I made all the baseball decisions. And I had a boss, you know, and if there was something George wanted us to do that, you know, that he wanted done from certain people, I would tell the players this is what the boss wants and whatever. But they knew that when I put a lineup out or when I disciplined someone or whatever it was, it came from me. It came from me. And that was important because if I am expected to be a leader of a ball club, they need to know that I make all the baseball decisions. And the thing about it is, you know, George would say things in the paper, and he'd always want me or Mel Stottlemyre to, you know, if a pitcher happened to do a bad job, you know, rip him in the newspaper. Well, I made a commitment to my players because I think all New Yorkers, although anywhere now with the social media, you know, they just salivate over the opportunity to find out some dirt or some things that go on in the clubhouse. But I made a commitment to my players. I said, you'll never read anything in the newspaper that I said about you that was significant. I mean, I may, you know, say that they said it was an error. That mean that was for everybody to see. I said, unless you heard it from me first. Unless you heard it from me first. I just thought there was a certain trust that I needed to have with these players to, you know, make a commitment. Because to me, you can't, you know, to me, being successful is all about committing yourself to do something. And unless there's trust, you really don't commit. Unless you know that the person who's calling the shots is trustworthy and honest, then you're not totally sure about, you know, what is in it for you. So, you know, I got lucky. As I said, I was put in charge of a bunch of really solid people, and they never got tired of winning. If somebody came on board, somebody came on board, these players would come from another ball club. They wouldn't come in and say, well, here I am, I'm ready to carry the load here. No, they'd come in and say, where do I fit in? And that was proud for me because, you know, our ball club played hard and they didn't need the accolades as long as we put a W on the board. If we won, it was a team effort. If we lost, it was a team effort. But that was important. What you guys do is so much more important than what I did. And I go out and start spring training and say to my players, we can afford to lose 60 games. You guys better not lose 60 games. Everything is all about perspective. Media is very tough nowadays because of, they feel they're entitled to know a lot of things that I didn't think they needed to know, because when they take small snippets of things, it's really not an indication of what they think they know. So I'm very proud of, my years as a manager, and it was nice to get on board with the Yankees and do things the same as I did it with the other 3 ball clubs, and have it work. And of course, I think I stayed too long at the dance with the Yankees, because I think the last couple of years they didn't know how to say goodbye, and I didn't either. It was time, I think, for a change. And when I did accept the Dodgers job, it was basically to find out if managing could be fun again. And it turns out I stayed there a couple of years. We had some success, and I had a good time.